right, welcome back everyone. So here we are, after a week of being immersed in this beautiful countryside and this amazing energy of the space and the people and all the work that we've been doing. And we were talking about exploring awakening. We did some exploration of that, and then one of the viewers had a question also, like, what is an awakened life? What are we even talking about here? How does it relate? So I guess let's start by just talking about that a little bit.
Okay.
What is an awakened life? What is an awakened life to you?
Well, to take a stab at that, it's important for me to break it off by saying it's dependent on where you are in life, and an awakened life can mean something to you now, and then it can mean something to you later. So it's like this flower that's blossoming, and then it dies, and then it blossoms, and each time it rebirths by making use of its previous life, its previous iteration. And I say that out of my own experience because I thought an awakened life meant something 2 years ago, but this whole trip and all this inner work has made me realize that, oh wait a minute, an awakened life could now be this, and I resonate more with that, and perhaps that model, that perception will eventually break down in the future.
That's very true, man. That's an excellent point because we're constantly evolving, and a lot of the realizations that occurred to me years ago, I've since transcended. It's like a lot of times we have to take a step, to be able to see a little bit higher above the horizon, and then we take another step and we think we see it. We think we have the whole picture, right? The big picture. This is it. I got it, right? And then we take another step higher and we recognize that that was just a stepping stone to get us to be able to recognize the brilliance that is now, coming into view.
Yeah.
So, I guess, what is it to you right now? What is an awakened life as best you can describe in your experience, the way you understand it right now?
Yeah. Well, after this week's experiences and insights, I've come to realize that an awakened life is a life where you're in flow, where you have surrendered your ego agenda, you've surrendered all your planning and all your controlling, and you're just allowing life to flow through you in whatever rhythm, shape, and color it takes. And that to me has been very powerful because I was living under the paradigm of oh no, it's me who needs to set everything up. It's me who needs to set all these goals and set all these agendas into the future without really knowing what's going to happen tomorrow. So yeah, sure, my ego gets a sense of safety and satisfaction that I think I know what's going to happen. But in reality, I'm not driving the car. So if I just surrender that and let everything to flow through me, then I'm living each moment awake at whatever is going to happen in very spontaneous fashion. So to me right now, an awakened life is a life of flow.
All right, so talk about that a little bit for a moment, like surrendering the ego. Does that mean we have to get rid of the ego? What does that mean?
Great question, and that's something that I've been learning to deal with in my own mind this past week because I'm a big proponent of the ego is actually not the enemy like everybody proposes that it is.
Yeah.
I'd rather say it's misunderstood. And when something's misunderstood, then you can't really relate to it well. And because of that, all this chaos comes up. And what's the easiest thing to say? Oh, find someone to blame. Oh, it's the ego. Blame it on the ego. But I kind of have a tough time trying to kill something inside of me because it's still a part of me.
Well, also it brings into light this whole realization that, okay, here's the ego, I'm gonna get rid of that fucker, he's the cause of all the problems. Well, who is now speaking, right? This is just like a spiritual ego. It's just another manifestation of egoic function, right? Which is taking charge, taking control, thinking, I'm the one who's right, that's the thing that's wrong, it needs to be eliminated. And this whole sense of control, right, is what we need to surrender and let go of.
Yes.
And then just allow it to be. But so when we do that, we don't have to get rid of it. We just recognize it for what it is. And in that recognition, there's freedom. And I mean, to me, that's a big piece of the awakened life right there. It's just, we're so identified and caught up in our agendas, in what we want and what we think is right and all that. And the awakened life is really about, just like you said, surrendering that, but not making it into an enemy or something to be gotten rid of. But in the surrendering, in the letting go, that creates some space for us to recognize what is it that we are beyond the ego. What is it like right now? You can just ask yourself, like, look inside and try to see if you can sense or contact something or some presence, some essence of you that isn't trying to control anything. That's okay in this moment. And so these voices, these functions of the mind, or these parts, as they talk about a lot of times, can come up in that space, and we can recognize, it's just like a voice of the past. It's just like, it's programming. It's not a problem. I don't need to make it into an enemy or get rid of it, because that's just more ego, right? That's just more delusion, and that will keep me stuck. That's not what an awakened life is. Awakening, I like what you said about it being flow. It's being in that flow and allowing life to live us.
And I'd like to piggyback on your comment on parts, and that's been one of my biggest takeaways from this trip, and it's learning to identify that my psyche is like this multi-faced diamond that turns around depending on the experience that I have in front of me. So it's basically like thinking in triggers. Depending with who I am or what experience I'm having, then a certain personality, a certain part of me comes to the surface and wants to speak and wants to take the show. Before, I was totally absorbed by these parts and didn't realize that was happening. But through our practices and through effortless mindfulness and through Locke Kelly's teachings, I've managed to gain some distance and realize, oh, wait a minute. A part just emerged, and that part is what wants to speak. All right, cool, I see that. However, now that I have this distance and this awareness, I can choose to not let that part speak. And it's not that I'm suppressing it or telling it to go away. Rather, I'm allowing it to express itself internally, acknowledge it, yet not express it outwards and perhaps giving somebody a hard time or creating some stress or creating some suffering.
Or just allowing it to sit in the center of being and take on the persona as you. It's funny too, you were talking about levels and how our perspectives change over time, and I realized what I said prior to this immediately. I was like, oh man, that's going to be misinterpreted right away. So just allow life to live you, huh? Then what are you going to do? Just sit around and like be a couch potato? And so like this is the understanding that will come if we haven't gotten to that stage where we can actually really, it's about letting life support this flow, right? And so you're not so identified as the one in control, but you can still have intentions, you can still have a direction. These are all good things. So it's not just about, oh, whatever, man, just let it all happen. It's about really, you have to establish that ground of being first and that connection to the self, and then you just pay attention, become highly alert, because we're getting signs, we're getting intuitions, we're getting inspiration, we're getting direction, we're getting clarity all the time. But if we're so wrapped up in our own agenda and what we think and what we know is right, we're going to miss all that stuff. It's not going to be able to sink in. So that's kind of more of what I'm talking about, rather than just becoming this blasé, whatever, man, it's all good.
We're more connected than we think, and that's for certain, since what Colin just said is a doubt that came up in my mind, because I'm very goal oriented and like, oh, this is my purpose and this is my strategy. And now that I'm surrendering all that and just letting it flow, a part of me immediately said, oh, wait a minute, man, so you're just gonna like what? Not do anything and just like sit on the couch? I'm like, wait a minute, that's a part that's doubting the divine guidance that I will be receiving. And when you surrender to that guidance, trust that you will naturally become inspired. You will naturally be drawn to certain things and activities, and that is what you are meant to honor. So once you gain distance from your parts and you're able to just let them go as they emerge, and you open room for divine guidance to flow through, oh my friends, you're in for a treat.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Very, very well said.
Yeah.
So what was your experience in the practice that we did a couple days ago when we walked through that? The Drigdrishya Viveka, the seer, the seen, subject, objectivity. Go ahead and share something that was recognized or realized, or that you experienced as a result of that.
Absolutely. So what happened to me is, through this series of questions where I was basically deconstructing what I thought I was seeing and what I thought I identified myself, there was a couple moments that all of a sudden I was like smiling, and whatever I was looking at was even like a bit trippy, and it wasn't as solid as I usually see life. And I started seeing like this shimmering around me, around my vision field, and the edges of my peripheral vision started to get a bit hazy. And I was like, all right, this is interesting, this is new. And what I was noticing is, for some reason, this natural like happiness and bliss started to emerge, even if only for like brief moments. But it was enough for me to realize there's something here. And if I keep doing this practice, eventually, just like water erodes an entire mountain with due time, I feel that is what's gonna happen with my clenched fist, with my gripping of life, with me thinking I know everything. This new awareness, this new space just starts eroding that and starts opening up my hands to simply receive the gift of life. So that was my experience.
That's beautiful, man. Yeah, so in that space that gets created, you know, and like you said, things that appeared so solid, you know, they start to lose that solid quality. And so we're just accessing another view, another perspective. And so just like, you know, we know from Newtonian physics, everything is very solid, but if we're looking at the quantum field, right, everything is just energy in flux. And so they're both true, it just depends on what perspective you're looking from. And so we're so caught oftentimes in this solid, you know, so everything is as it is, you know, and we get locked into that. And so when we start to question that and examine some other alternate perspectives, it starts to loosen up, and in that space, that creates the potential for a natural unwinding, a natural releasing, and that's where the bliss comes up, right? It's like the bliss is here, the bliss is now. Sat Chit Ananda, that's what you are, in essence, being, consciousness, and bliss. But people can get the beingness, okay, yeah, I'm being right here. Conscious, yeah, okay, I'm conscious. Bliss, no, I'm in pain. That's a lie. Well, the pain is there, sure, but as that pain unwinds, as we create space for it to unwind naturally, bliss, which is our essence, arises spontaneously. And so that is, I think that's what you're experiencing, and that's incredible. That's why I like to call it letting go without letting go. You know, I did letting go work, Sedona method, you know, many different types of releasing, you know, techniques. But what I found after years and years of doing that is it ultimately ends in a trap. Like, you have to get past that level too, because who's letting go? Oh, it's me, you know, me, this ego, who's actually part of the problem. And the one who's part of the problem can't let go fully. You can let go some, and it's helpful, right? But if we want radical liberation and total absolute freedom, this has to come from a different level of awareness, a different level of mind, heart, mind, or spacious awareness, awake awareness. These levels have the capacity to generate this incredible freedom spontaneously. And when it happens, you know it, because it's like, whoa, this is happening. I'm not doing it. It's just, whoo. And then, you know, the piece of the self becomes apparent and undeniable in your direct experience, which is the only thing that really matters.
That's a wrap, guys.
Yeah, this has been an amazing week, man. Pablo, it's been fantastic, brother.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Got it, brother.
For sure.
Thank you, guys.
Namaste, guys. Be well.
We'll see you around.
Be joyful.
Much
Peace.
love.